Welcome to the July 8th meeting of the Aiken City Council. If you are inclined, please rise for the invocation followed by the pledge. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in the city of Aiken the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. In your name we pray, amen. Chief Branco, will you please come forward to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Mayor, Council, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before the meeting begins, I will review the guidelines for the meeting. Meetings are public forums in which many opinions are expressed, and the business of the city must be conducted. As such, disciplined, honorable, and professional decorum is paramount. Courteous and respectful communication is required. During public hearings, all questions and statements from the public shall be directed to the chair. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. Please approach the podium and state your name and address. In order to allow an opportunity for everyone who wishes to address council, speakers should limit their comments to the subject being discussed. Each speaker will be given 5 minutes to address an issue and may only address an issue once unless questions from council are posed to the speaker. During the non-agenda public comment section, each speaker has 3 minutes and can only speak once. We now move to additions and deletions to the agenda. I recognize Mayor Pro Tem Ed Girardeau for this agenda item. Thank you,
Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Glad to have you here. The dead of summer. Hope people are staying cool. There are no additions or deletions to our agenda this evening, so I present this as a motion to council.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there a second? Councilman Waltz, second the motion. All those in favor? Motion's passed. The minutes were provided to council for review prior to the meeting. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes, please? Councilwoman Diggs, and we need a second, please.
Second, Mayor.
Councilwoman Gregory made the second. Any comments or changes? All in favor? Motion's passed. We have one presentation this evening. Councilman Girardeau, will you please read the proclamation recognizing Eliza King as a 4-time high state champion for the Javelin track team, high school. Will Ms. King and anyone here to support her please come forward to receive this proclamation?
So, come on, Eliza. If any of you want to join her, I mean, that's fine, or you can sit there and cheer her on. Where's the javelin?
Oh, yes. There it is. Oh, it is there.
I told her to bring it, and if any of you get out of line, she knows how to use it. I'm pretty lucky she hasn't used that on me. Eliza is my next-door neighbor.
Right.
It's good to see all the Kings here this evening to support you. About a month ago or so, there was an article in the Aiken Standard that Kendall had written at the Aiken Standard, and it said something about a 4-time state champion, and I looked down, they had a picture, but it wasn't particularly great of you. You were looking down, I couldn't tell. So I started reading the article, and who is this that won these state championships? It was Eliza. I had no clue this was going on next door. So I stalked her because I knew she was coming out to cut the grass. And that's Eliza, man. She's out there working in the yard. The whole family does that, quite frankly. Exceptional young lady, exceptional family, and your brothers and sisters are all great, too. Anyway, let's go ahead and read the proclamation. You ready? Whereas the city of Aiken is proud to recognize the outstanding achievements of its citizens, and whereas Eliza King has demonstrated exceptional skill, dedication, and sportsmanship in the sport of javelin. And whereas, through tireless effort and determination, Eliza has achieved the remarkable accomplishments of becoming a 4-time South Carolina state champion, winning in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024 in the javelin. I think you also won the state championship in cross country this year too, didn't you? Regional? Okay. Well, that was pretty good too. That's not in here. That's an extra. And besting her mark by at least 10 feet in each consecutive year,
Wow.
with a high this year of 167 feet, 6.25 inches, a number that ranks first in the nation according to the publication Mile Split. So that's for everybody in high school in the nation. It's pretty impressive. Whereas Eliza has served as an inspiration to fellow athletes in community, exemplifying the values of hard work, perseverance, and excellence. And whereas the extraordinary achievement not only brings pride to Eliza, but also to her family and friends, the city of Aiken, Aiken High School, and all of those who have supported and encouraged this journey. And whereas the city of Aiken wishes to honor and celebrate Eliza for this significant accomplishment, for being a role model to others, which you are. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and all of Aiken City Council do hereby proclaim July 8th, 2024, and it's okay if you want to continue this tomorrow, as Eliza King Day in the city of Aiken. And Eliza King Day in the city of Aiken, and urge all citizens to join in recognizing and celebrating Eliza's outstanding achievements and contributions to our community. And it is signed by the mayor and all of council. Congratulations.
I don't get out in the rain.
The cliff. So we were there for 3 hours eating all kinds of meat and cheese and wine. There's a big sign that says, "You may not see them, but they're here." Did you run?
And to add, because Gary would be mad if I didn't use the microphone, Eliza finished, I think, what are you, 26th in the nation for the Olympics you were number 26. The top 24 get to go to the trials. So she didn't quite make that, but in 4 years, I expect you to be 10, 20, 40 yards, for over 200 feet on the javelin and be a shoe-in for the Olympics. And boy, we will have a celebration too on that. It's pretty amazing. And I asked her who her coach was. She said her dad and YouTube. So it's remarkable.
Good.
I was an athlete in high school, and I didn't sniff a state championship. So, and we used to talk about it all the time, and 4 times in a row. Wow, that's amazing. All right, they want me to quit talking.
No, it wouldn't be the same if you did. It was great. Thank you, and thank you, Eliza. We now open the floor to public comments on non-agenda items. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and for a total of 30 minutes.
Wow, that's got to be a record.
Nobody wants to say anything? Sam, you're not going to talk about it? Thank you all. Okay.
Good reputation, Sam.
Next, we have approval and discussion of appointees to various city boards, committees, and commissions. Mr. Beanbo.
Thank you. We have Glenn Parker. His reappointment to the Recreation Commission is before the council this evening, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept this nomination?
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman Broll. And a second, please? Second. Councilwoman Price, second the motion. Comments from the public? Comments from council? All in favor? Motion passed. Are there any nominations to consider at our next meeting?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to re-nominate John Rush to the General Aviation Commission, please.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. The next item under old business is second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to annex 113 Vivion Drive and zone it RS 15 residential single family. Mr. Beedenbow.
Thank you. The applicants are requesting this annexation. It's approximately 51/100ths of an acre, zone at RS 15 residential single family. The zoning is consistent with surrounding uses and zoning. The Planning Commission at their June 11th meeting, those present unanimously recommended its passage. It's before City Council for second and final reading this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion, please?
Madam Mayor, I so move on this annexation request.
Councilwoman Broll made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilwoman Girodo. Councilman Girodo made the second the motion. Are there any comments from the public, please? Comments from council? All those in favor, then? The motion's passed. The next item under old business is second reading and public hearing of an ordinance requesting a waiver for signage at Aiken High School. Mr. Beedenbow.
Thank you. The ordinance is entitled An Ordinance Amending the Concept Plan for Property Located at 449 Rutland Drive. The applicant is requesting a waiver limiting freestanding sign size and limiting the number of freestanding signs. The Board of Education is proposing to place a monument sign near the front of the buildings off Rutland Drive. The sign ordinance limits freestanding signs to 1 per lot, so a waiver is required to add the proposed third freestanding sign. The size of the sign also requires a waiver. It's limited to 32 square feet. This is 37.88 square feet. And no elements of the approved concept plan are changing since approved by City Council. The Planning Commission, all present at their June 11th meeting, unanimously recommended the waivers, and it is before council this evening for second reading.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Councilwoman Diggs made the motion. I need a second, please.
Second, Madam Mayor.
Councilwoman
Price.
Price made the second the motion. Are there any comments from the public? Comments from council? All those in favor? Motion approved, passed.
Madam Mayor, if I may, on items number 4 and 5, I discovered late this afternoon that my law partner, Ray Massey, is the registered agent for the applicant VP Riverside LLC. That by itself, I do not believe would constitute a conflict of interest for me participating in this discussion. However, I was not able to investigate Mr. Massey's further involvement in VP Riverside LLC. So just for the sake of safety, I'm going to recuse myself from these 2 items.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I have handed my potential conflict of interest statement to the city clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next item under old business is second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone 11.4 acres located at Rutland Drive and Lawrence Street to plan commercial and approve a concept plan. Mr. Beedenbow.
Thank you. The ordinance is entitled an ordinance amending the zoning of real estate owned by VP Riverside LLC from residential single-family RS10 to plan commercial PC and approve a concept plan. The applicant is requesting rezoning of 11.4 acres, which is a portion of the property at Rutland Drive and Lawrence Street with approval of a concept plan. There is an overall master plan that's been provided, which has a proposed mixed-use residential and commercial development. We will address the planned residential piece in the subsequent agenda item. Right now, this is only for the planned commercial piece. The PC zoning is appropriate for this. It requires Planning Commission review and a recommendation and approval by City Council. You may remember this property was looked at to zone completely to planned residential in 2022 for 330 townhomes, but that concept plan and rezoning has expired. The recent updates assign the mixed-use development to this area. The proposed PR and PC would be consistent with the plan. It has necessary utilities available. Commercial access drives will remain private, and commercial properties will need stormwater detention areas unless controlled by a master system for the development, which is recommended. The application narrative notes a proposed tractor supply will come with a concept plan. No restriction of uses, so all possible PC uses will be permitted. They request a variance to reduce the open space to 15%. The plan must comply with the tree preservation and landscape requirements. The 2 entrances to this commercial portion of the parcel will require DOT approval. Full traffic study will be required. Street frontage sidewalks will be required due to its proximity to Aiken High School, and any commercial development in the future will require review by the Planning Commission, approval by City Council. Those present at the June 11th Planning Commission meeting unanimously recommended the rezoning, and Council approved it on first reading at the June 24th meeting.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve this second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Jericho and Councilman Waltz second the motion. Are there any comments from the public, please? Ms. Peggy?
Yes.
Density wins, fire safety loses in the first round of the city council voting on a proposed development on the north side.
Your name? I'm sorry, could you introduce your name into the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. Peggy Elgin.
Thank you, Ms. Elgin.
I live in Woodside. At the last meeting, the Aiken City Council voted 5-2 to waive a zoning code requirement and reduce the space separating some buildings in a proposed development that were aimed at better fire safety. Voting against giving the waiver were Mayor Milner and Councilman Waltz. The vote came after building and fire department officials made the case for following zoning code requirements. They cited safety for the firemen fighting fires between the two buildings, or between buildings, as one of the reasons. The application is for a property on 38 acres, I guess that'll be up on the chart soon, on Rutland Drive and Lawrence Street. In addition to changing the zoning category from residential single-family RS10 to planned residential PR, and to approve a concept plan, a waiver of the zoning code was requested that would permit the developer to reduce the space between 2 stories of single-family residences from 20 to 15 feet. I attended the meeting and heard several Aiken officials speak about the need for stronger rather than weaker setbacks. Captain Bruce Brazier, the city fire marshal, stated it's a matter of safety and an issue for a firefighter on the scene fighting the fire. They are charged with life, safety, and property conservation. Brazier points out that a fire in a home fire today, in today's world, flashes in 3 to 5 minutes. That is why separation in this instance is not only to protect our people, but to protect our property as well. Mike Jordan, the building inspector, says the building code he deals with is different from the zoning code, which goes above and beyond the minimal requirement of the building code. He suggests not reducing the distance between the structures. Should there be a fire, he says, the aim is to keep it from spreading to the other structures. In the past, when he talked to other developers, the question was asked, what is 5 feet? He said, personally, with a live fire, it is a lot. He noted for multiple story buildings, a ladder is needed, and that distance is critical. Chief Charles Branco notes that when fire burns hotter and faster, time is always an issue. In the older days, downtown Aiken, with houses close to property lines, one house would catch fire and spread to others. So as a consequence, fire and police were involved in the strengthening of the zoning ordinance. That's something we should be proud of and support. I lived in a planned development as well, and I would like to know if similar waivers were granted in my community.
Thank you. I believe she's referring to the next item. That would be the planned residential. This is the planned commercial.
That's correct.
That's fine. No worries. Just wanted to clear that up. Any other comments from the public? Comments from council? All those in favor? The motion passed unanimously.
Just for clarification for Ms. Peggy, this is for the commercial piece of property, not for the homes. Thank you.
The final item under old business this evening is the second reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone 38 acres on Lawrence Street and Rutland Drive to planned residential and approve a concept plan. Mr. Redenbaugh, please.
Thank you. The ordinance is entitled An Ordinance Amending the Zoning of Real Estate Owned by VP Riverside LLC from Residential Single Family RS10 to Planned Residential PR and to approve a concept plan. The applicant, it's the same applicant as the prior item. This is a portion of the same parcel. It's a rezoning of 38 acres for a concept plan with the overall master plan, which shows the proposed mixed-use residential and commercial development. And this is the other application referenced in the prior item. Since it is a larger tract of land, the PR zoning is appropriate since it is for residential use, which requires a concept plan to be reviewed by a planning commission and approved by City Council. This would be for 59 single-family attached dwellings with a proposed density of 9.4 units per acre and 210 single-family detached dwellings with a density of 3.8 parcels per acre. 269 units on 38 acres equals 7.1 units per acre. Like the prior project, it was the concept plan on it had expired that was approved in 2022. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. These are much smaller lots than the adjacent ones and nearby subdivisions, but it will provide more common space and it has necessary utilities. There's mixture of architectural elements, and they will meet the minimal open space requirements. It must comply with landscape standards of the zoning ordinance. The concept plan denotes setbacks from property lines, but does not denote the PR zoning standard requiring minimum separation distances as noted. The Planning Commission heard this at their June 11th meeting. All those present unanimously recommended its approval of the rezoning to PR. The City Council heard this at first reading at the June 11th meeting, and they passed, at the June 24th meeting. They made council, you made an amendment to the ordinance, which is reflected in second reading, that there be a and I'm going to read that one condition, which is the third condition, that the required building separations are met per zoning ordinance section 4.2.9, and the amended portion follows, except in the case of two-story residences, there shall be a 15-foot building separation and not a 20-foot building separation. As you recall, we did have a fair amount of discussion about this, the council voted to grant that waiver at the request of the applicant, and this is before council for second reading this evening.
Thank you. Is there a motion to pass the second reading?
So moved.
Councilman Girardeau. Councilwoman Price, second the motion. Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Name is Glenn DeFries. Address is 104 Nutmeg Court. I'm a licensed fire protection engineer in the state of South Carolina with a master's in fire protection engineering from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I wanted to talk about the separation between buildings and the decrease from 20 feet to 15 feet. Building separation dates back all the way to the rebuilding of Rome in 64 AD. One of the leading causes for the destruction of Rome in that fire was buildings being close to each other, allowing fire to rapidly spread from one to another. As the Empire of Rome fell, we got back away from that, but we recognized it again in the Great Fire of London in 1666, where the same conditions, buildings butting up next to each other, no fire separation between buildings, caused fire to rapidly spread from one building to another. It's not only a firefighter safety issue, not having the required separation between the buildings, it's a life safety issue, and not just for the people in the house that is on fire, the people in the house on either side. That 5 feet of difference is big. Radiative heat transfer of fire decreases by the square of the distance. So an increase from 15 feet to 20 feet decreases the radiative heat transfer to a quarter of what it was. It's a big difference. That limits fire spread from one building to another. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other comments from the public? Yes, Mr. Ellis.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, Jacob Ellis, 3 Short Court. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but this got me thinking. If this was an out-of-town developer, someone brand new to Aiken with no connections whatsoever, would we be granting them the same exceptions to the building separations? Would we be letting them go from 20 feet to 15 feet? I have to say no, but since this is a local developer, I think that is special treatment, and no people should have special treatment when it comes to these safety standards. When do we stop at making these exceptions for developers from in town or out of town? The next developer who comes along could want 10 feet separation, and because we granted this 15 feet, they could say, well, you did it for him, you have to do it for me. It should stay at the 20 feet building separation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Comments from council?
What is the difference when you build units downtown and the distance between those lots versus, and people occupying property versus the density with these units? And I don't know whether there's any distinction or clarification in terms of what is the difference in apartments are built downtown. Pardon me.
Yes, Mr. Jordan's going to come up and speak to that question.
Like we did talk about that
Right.
at the last meeting.
Yeah, we did.
In the downtown, or central business district, Old Aiken overlay, is a different zone. That zone allows for zero lot line construction. The buildings we have downtown, Lawrence Street, all zero lot line. The safety is built in those through thickness of masonry walls, ratings, fire sprinkler systems. I got asked about Chesterfield Street, the 2 houses there. Those houses have additional fire protection built into them because there's 6 foot between the 2 of them. The building code required that, and because of the zone, it was allowed. Downtown, we don't have housing developments like this in close proximity with that light wood frame construction. Most of our, back in the day when we constructed these buildings, was through the thickness of masonry to prevent the spread of fire because there were no setbacks from buildings, and trying to limit the amount of openings should there be a fire to, again, contain it to the area of origin and not extend to other structures. But it's the zoning. It allows, and again, we don't have this type construction, residential construction downtown. Apartment buildings are fire sprinkled. There's separation requirements between rooms, condominiums, the same thing. Any residential construction that comes out of the building code is required to have a fire sprinkler. We used to, back in the day, the downtown was our #1 fire zone and had minimum type construction requirements. That has since basically not so much anymore because the building code's tightened up, requiring fire protection requirements for exterior walls, minimizing openings the closest you get to the property line. But that's basically the difference. When we get away from our downtown light wood frame construction, you're talking about a lot of structures with individual people in that are in control of that, and anything and everything can happen. And in the past, we felt like separation was one of the best tools to keep fires contained to the area of origin. Did that?
Thank you.
It did. You answered my question. But the question that I have with the developer is the fire masonry walls in existence since there has been a request for an exception to reduce the distance, the density with this property? Todd, please.
Todd Glover, VP Riverside.
in the packet, we proposed materials which were brick, stone, and hardy plank. Hardy plank is actually a cement product that is non-combustible. So I believe it has a very high fire rating, which would be similar to what you would have on a downtown building. Would also point out, as we were riding in at your last meeting and then we confirmed, there is a subdivision being constructed on 19 right past our proposed, that's outside the city limits, called Rivers Crossing. That is in the unincorporated portion of the county, and those buildings are 15 feet apart. Now, you may say, well, that's in the unincorporated part of the county, then why does that matter to this? It's in the city of Aiken's fire district, and these are newly constructed homes. They're putting them up one after another over there. It's right on the right as you're going out past 19. So not only does this exist within already the city, we're not the first people to ever request this variance. We're requesting the variance on 59 of the 269 parcels. We don't know that all of them would actually be two-story homes, and we're also proposing materials that are non-combustible. So I take a little exception to, I guess, the insinuation that we're building something to put firefighters' lives at stake. That's the least thing that we ever would like to do. But I would like to point out that there's new construction going on that the City of Aiken Fire Department is responsible for fire protection that are the same distances that we're requesting. And they are wood vinyl siding, not the non-combustible products that we have proposed in our proposal to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm looking at Miss Peggy and she's raising her hand out there, but it's council's.
That's fine. It's still public.
Yes, we're still at public comment.
Come up.
If you could come up to the mic.
And state your name again, please.
Is it permitted that I speak again?
Yes, this is an item.
And just say your name and address or where you live, please.
Peggy Elgin, and I live in Woodside, which is one of the developments. There might be some separations that are less than this. I'm not sure. I would like to know. But I think the goal should be public safety. There are undoubtedly places where this inequity exists, where there is a smaller portion of space between buildings. But I'm hoping that the council will understand that safety is an important issue, and just how it was before and it might be less safe, should not be used as an example to go forward.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Comments from council?
I will take exception to the idea that we gave any preference to the developer. That's not the case. Part of this is the process of what we've already talked about. Is there's cases of precedent where it's been allowed. I think the reserve, which is on the outskirts, it's not really, it's part of Woodside for all intent and purposes. I think there are some exceptions that meet that over there. I don't know about the rest of the subdivision in terms of what's there and what's not, but we can get an answer to that. One of the issues I've had all along, and again, this goes back to something we said in the work session, are PR and PC. is the inconsistencies. And we're saying that it's okay for one story to be 7.5 or 15 feet, but it's not for a 2-story. And we have the zero lot lines, and I understand zero lot lines have the fact of the built-in deterrent within them. Then that'd be the townhouses that are part of this development. But again, 7.5, 10, we need to readdress that in zoning and be consistent from one to the other. But again, I tend to look at it as if it's safe for a 1-story, it's safe for a 2-story. It really has nothing to do with getting in between the two houses. It does have something to do with the two houses, the next house and the gentleman who pointed out the problems in the past in different things. If I had to guess, in England, the big fire in 1660, they were zero lot lines, or they were right on top of one another. I don't know. We don't need to debate that. But in this particular scenario, I feel like the other subdivisions prove the fact that it's okay. It's 7.5 feet, 15 feet total. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Mayor? Yes. Just to add to what Councilman Gerardo mentioned, yeah, I don't like the preferential treatment comment. I think those comments are reckless. I also want to point out that Colleton Park allowed this in the past. Those are not apartments. You know, fires don't know zones. We know zones. Fires don't know zones. So I just want to point that out, because it's like, it's okay in this zone, but if we're zoned this, but it's not okay in this zone. And, you know, it's okay because it's outside of the district or the city limits, but it's not okay if it's within. So again, that's stuff that we really need to clean up, because a fire breaks out and it doesn't discriminate zoning. Colleton Park is not apartments. It's less than 100 homes that fell under the same type of scenario. It's maybe even closer to what, 50, 60, Stuart, approximately?
Approximately.
So it's really around the same size. I do feel comfortable with the fact that the developer proposed the stone, the brick, and the hardy plank, and the hardy plank being a Class A fire rating with a flame spread index of 0. So I think that's important to communicate. I just did a little bit of research because I know there was a concern, and I just feel like that's important information to know and have at hand. So with that said, I'm comfortable with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to piggyback on what Councilman Gregory just pointed out, the hardy plank, I don't think it's a proposal. I think it's stated in the approval that it's the exterior is brick or hardy plank or stone, which means they can upgrade beyond the hardy plank to brick, which would be a better fire deterrent if that's what they chose. But you're right, the hardy plank is a concrete-based product, and it's very difficult to burn, so it does provide some fire protection.
And I will piggyback on what both you said, because at the first reading, I asked that specific question about the hardy plank. And after the meeting, I did a little of my own research too. And it is, anything will burn except concrete. And so, but it is one of those things that are not as combustible as vinyl and other things. And you know, I don't think any of us up here want to be foolhardy about anyone's safety, nor any development that we approve. But as we said, we don't know that all of these are going to be 2-story or whatever, so I'm okay with it also.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, there are two schools of thought here. We have an unincorporated area that is being built right now, and it's 15 feet apart. Having said that, we provide fire protection, we being the city, for this area. You have requests in an area within the city limits, right across from Macon High School, to build these units, making the same requests. But the question with the unincorporated area is, it's vinyl siding, from what I'm hearing, versus what was just said in terms of the masonry walls and the stones, the brick stones that are there. That makes a difference, in my opinion, which is why I seconded the motion in terms of moving this forward. Again, I'm certain, I hope, Mr. Glover, that there's going to be, and I know you're not the developer, there will be fire protection in these units that will protect these families that will move in. But we have been waiting, how long, Stuart, 2-3 years for this to move forward?
Yes, over 2.
For this to move forward, so that's where we are.
Anyone else want to make a comment? Everyone has? So all those in favor? We have Councilman Waltz and Mayor Milner opposed to the vote. Everyone else is in favor. Thank you. And I say this, I vote opposed because I just have to take the advice of our city officials. I hold them in great esteem and respect. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, the King family, if y'all don't want to keep staying, you don't have to stay. But if you're enjoying this, feel free.
Thank you.
And let me just say publicly, I don't have to, but this happens to be in an area where we have been desperate for some growth here, and this helps with some growth on the north side. I know that there are other projects that are coming and are being built, but this helps tremendously with some growth.
Thank you. We have no items under new business tonight, so we will move to petitions and requests. We have one item under petitions and requests, and it is approval of a contract with Housel Levine for professional services for a zoning ordinance / land development regulations, unified development ordinance. Mr. Beedenville.
Thank you. Council has identified updating our zoning ordinance as a priority. Last really emphasized in January. We've had multiple discussions regarding, and just recently, a few minutes ago, about updating this critical document. Our current zoning ordinance was adopted by council on November 22nd, 1999, and it's been amended and updated and revised numerous times since then. But it's time to assess it in total. And take into account changes in court precedent and standards. We published a request for qualifications February 1st to identify firms. We had 4 firms submit responses, and all were determined qualified to submit proposals. We had 3 firms submit proposals. The scoring team consisted of myself, along with the Assistant City Manager, Ms. Tilton, Planning Director, Ms. Moultrie, and Planning and Zoning Manager, Mr. Cowick. We interviewed each team, scored them, and we all agreed that Housel Levine was the firm we wanted to recommend to council for consideration to update this important document. During the process of researching the update for the zoning ordinance rewrite, during that we identified the thought that it might be beneficial to consider combining our zoning subdivision regulations and LDR, land development regulations, into a single document, a unified development ordinance. These are recognized by the American Planning Association as tools that improve the efficiency for these sort of exercises and help avoid conflicts or overlapping regulations. Housel Levine could do a UDO if we so desired, or if we wanted to keep them separate, they could do that as well. We plan to have multiple public input opportunities, as well as meetings with members of council, members of the Planning Commission, Design Review Board, Board of Zoning Appeals, staff, and, as I mentioned earlier, the public, because we want this, as was our comprehensive plan update. We just completed almost a year ago, one where we received over 1,000 unique comments. We want a similar type exercise should the public feel inclined to comment and provide input. We will allow for online comments, other forms of written comments, as well as in these public forums, as well as an online community engagement dashboard. We expect this process to take approximately 18 months. And should council want to go forward, what we would vote on tonight is a professional services contract to begin this process. And this contract is before council this evening for consideration.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mayor.
Councilwoman Gregory, approved.
I second, Madam Mayor.
And Councilwoman Brohl seconded the motion. Are there comments from the public? Ms. Johnson?
Good evening, everyone. Linda Johnson, 515 Parkside Drive. I had the opportunity to be here for the work session and hear the excellent presentation from Housel Levine. But there were a couple of things that weren't mentioned in the presentation. Aiken's core is historic. We all know that. We have guidelines to preserve that historic core, but right now they're applied at the tail end of a project typically. In the Housel Levine presentation, those guidelines and the Design Review Board weren't mentioned. And our historic core isn't homogeneous. It's composed of unique neighborhoods that don't have their own individual plans right now. So I have a couple of questions for Ms. Berg. What is Housel Levine's experience incorporating historic preservation needs into zoning? What challenges have they faced and how have they solved them? What's their experience with disadvantaged communities that might be historic? And how can zoning be used to support the character of neighborhoods? So I don't know if there's a chance for her to talk now.
Most definitely. Ms. Berg?
Happy to respond. So I think the first question was, what can zoning do to help with historic preservation? So I think zoning is really a fantastic tool to help dovetail with your historic preservation guidelines and other district regulations to ensure that we have clear standards that are applied at the beginning of the process and not towards the end of the process, to let developers know what they can and cannot do with that property, or residents as well. How can they change the exterior of their home? We can certainly clarify that in the processes section, and I think potentially exploring where in the process the DRB gets involved could be something that we look at with this group moving forward.
Thank you.
And I believe there was a third part.
Experience with disadvantaged neighborhoods.
Yes. So I was speaking with Planning Director Moultrie earlier, and she was telling me about the North neighborhood just north of the downtown, and it reminded me very much of the Northeast community in Wake Forest, North Carolina, a similarly historically African-American community that had a unique character that the rest of the community really didn't share. And in that community, the zoning ordinance would allow for infill development that really just did not match the character of those existing homes. So our approach there was to establish a new zoning district just for the Northeast community that really would only allow new development or redevelopment that was really in scale and character and massing with those existing homes, so that the new homes and the existing, more historic homes, they'd have the same setbacks, the same front porches, some of those other qualities that were there in the existing neighborhood, so that new homes would really help perpetuate that character. So that is certainly an approach that we can look at here in Aiken as well. What are those specific characteristics that make those neighborhoods unique, and how can we ensure that those characteristics are in place for future development as well?
Thank you. Yes.
I just want, Peggy Elgin, Woodside. I just wanted to ask you in the public meetings that you'll be talking about, is it going to be mostly or all drop-in meetings where people look at posters and fill out forms? Or will there be a give and take where people are talking to one another?
I suggest we'll get answers.
Yeah, well, Ms. Berg, but I think the thing of this is we can dictate to them how we want the process done. And yes, I think we're going to have both. Okay. Because we're going to need to have the former with the posters and all that, just to show once we are to a certain point in the process where we are, so folks can easily see that. But also, yes, where there's an opportunity for interested citizens to provide comments and as you described appropriately, the give and take.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Comments from council?
Share that I had a brief conversation following our presentation from Ms. Jackie, and based on her description of what will transpire, it should be very engaging for all of the public to come to listen and have input, and just not a certain sector of the community. It's quite inclusive.
Does anyone else want to add a comment? Question? All those in favor? Then it's unanimous. Motion's passed. Thank you. We now open the floor to public comments on non-agenda items. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker and for a total of 30 minutes. Anyone? Mr. Beedenbaugh, are there any items from the city manager this evening?
Yes, let me just announce or remind, we do, for those, we have cooling centers open during business hours at the Price Center and at the H.O. Weeks Center at Virginia Acres Park. And those are all the announcements that I have at this time.
Thank you.
Stuart, were those advertised in the Aiken Standard or?
Yes, they were published. I know they were advertised in the Aiken Standard and on our website and social media. I'm not sure. I know we have folks that track this if the TV stations have picked that up, but we did advertise that starting around June 21st.
I would just like to ask if you know of anyone that's roaming around, and a lot of people are homeless, don't have a place to go during the day. Just let them know that they can go to Leslie B. Price Center as well as Odell Weeks, and they have cold water there, and they can actually cool off there. So I think that's so important. We experience temperatures that we haven't seen before, and this is on a daily basis. This is not sporadic. So it's dangerous heat. So please, please, if you see anyone out and they look like they dehydrated or or don't have a bottle of water in their hand. I know I keep some in my car. She does the same thing. And if I see them, I just pull aside the road and just say, do you need some water? And that's all we need to do. Not a bad idea for everybody to keep an extra bottle of water in your car and do the same. Now, don't leave it in there in the heat. If you're going in a building, might want to put it in your purse or your bag so that it will at least be room temperature, better than boiling hot, because that's what it'll be if you leave it in your car. So it's we gotta take care of each other.
Yes, they will be Monday to the Price Center, the Leslie B. Price Aiken Senior and Youth Center, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The HO Weeks Center, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday, 1 p.m. to 5 p.m.
Thank you.
And I just texted it to you.
Modern day. So is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Councilman Giordano made the motion. Who seconds, please?
Second. Oh, you
Woman
did?
Price seconded the motion.
Second.
Thank you.
Is it still daylight?
Yes. All those in favor? All those in favor? All those in favor?
We'll see you in a month.